welcome to Framework. And welcome to the first time we're trying a new thing. We're going to do a draft, a 90s action movie draft. So this will be exciting. I am John, one of the hosts of Framework, and with me, as always, is the other host of Framework, Al. How are you today?
I am pretty good. I'm hoping that I understood the assignment, but not very confident.
We'll find out. And joining us, returning to the program, one of our favorites, it's Chris Prentice. How are you today, Chris?
Oh, I'm doing great, I'm super stoked for this installment. This is right in my wheelhouse, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about these movies.
Indeed. We couldn't do a 90s draft without you, Chris.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. The 90s action movie. What is that? It is, these were so popular. These are so specific. I mean, I think people, growing up, as we all did, roughly same age, there was a certain importance placed on the action movie. They were the most popular films. They were the big ones. They're the ones that we all bought on VHS from Suncoast Video to watch over and over again, or at least I did.
Yes.
And they had a very specific kind of maximalist excess to them that was, it's just so delightfully 90s and so unique. There's not many things like a 90s action movie. Pre 9/11-ish is one thing you call.
Yeah, pre 9/11 is certainly a factor here. Can I ask you guys, what differentiates a 90s action movie from an 80s action movie?
I would say that, with regards to the 90s, is there was a little more of an international feel to them. In the 80s, everything felt very American in terms of the action movies, and it kind of set this template for what was to come. Whereas I think the 90s, you started to see a lot of directors from other countries kind of getting involved, a lot of stars from other countries, and I feel like things got way more international and they got a lot better.
Post Cold War. That's a good distinction.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not, the Russians are not the default enemies anymore.
There you go.
We're drawing from a broader pool of maybe heroes, but definitely villains.
That is a huge thing. And it's also, I think, it explains to some extent why they got so rah-rah America. The 90s are a moment of America on top. Number one, we're the best, and we are happy to let you know about it. And it's also kind of when they became the most popular movies. I think the action film is kind of at its financial success peak in the 90s. In the 80s, they were grimy. They were R-rated. They morphed into PG-13, the most expensive and most popular films getting released. There is overlap there. We'll talk about this, I'm sure. Things like, the large-scale disaster picks. Those are technically action movies.
That's what I mean. If you guys want to keep your trade secrets to yourself, that's fine. We can just get into the draft. But I'm curious, are you treating, for me, the question was how to treat disaster movies, and as a corollary, how to treat like historical epics. Do they count as action movies? And I'm leaning towards no. I mean, maybe I'll sneak one in the last spot, but I don't know. Like,
I tend to think of the disaster movies as their own thing, but that's whenever you're talking about genres, you can go on forever about, is this an action movie? Is this a crime drama? Is this an adventure film? It gets kind of muddied, but the disaster movies that were kind of the other hallmark of the 90s, I feel like they're their own thing.
Yeah. I'll give you a preview of mine. I'm not going to pick any Michael Mann movies, even though, something like Heat is a crime drama with one incredible action scene, but I wouldn't call it. I don't think of it as an action movie. Well, you know which one I meant first, though.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. There's a difference between an action movie and then a movie that has great action scenes. There's a difference there.
Yeah. Last Mohicans, also one of my favorite movies, has excellent large-scale action sequences, but I don't think of it as an action movie. It's got enough other stuff going on that it's not on that shelf in my video store.
Yeah, well, I'll mention one. I'll mention one real quick that I know nobody would be thinking of drafting, but I think has one of the best action scenes of the 90s is Miller's Crossing.
Totally.
That shootout in the middle there. I mean, that's incredible action filmmaking right there. But I wouldn't call it an action movie.
No, yeah, nobody's going to call that an action movie. Okay.
No.
Yeah, well, this does bring up a point, though, which is that because this draft is a pretense to conversation, there are no rules.
Right.
If you want to draft Clueless and think that's one of the best action movies of the 90s, there's no mechanism to stop you. You can do it. But,
The mechanism for me is when we're drafting, when people get very clever with, themes or whatever like that. I just feel like, okay, but now you're just, the point of the draft format is to introduce an element of competition, and now you're just playing a completely different game than the rest of us. So what are we even doing? But let's dive in. We got to determine a draft order. How are we going to do that?
Okay, well, it's going to be a classic snake draft: 1, 2, 3, and then 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, etc. Bringing us to a total of 5 films each, 15 movies, and because it's 3 of us and it's a short list, this has to be the best of the best, and not much room for the Daylight with Sylvester Stallone. Apologies if that was on anyone's list, but this is about the best 90s action. So only there. In order to determine draft order, I have come up with a game. And this game is picking a movie I do not know is going to be on anyone's list, but I'm guessing probably not. However, I know everyone here has seen it. We're talking about Armageddon, and I'm going to do a round robin. Name an actor that appears in this film until you cannot go any further.
Okay. All right.
I will start it off. Bruce Willis appears in Armageddon as Harry Stamper, the greatest out-rig driller in the entire world. If you can name the character, that's a bonus that does not count toward your score.
Oh,
so
yeah, thank God.
Chris, you're next on my bracket here, so that puts you number 2 for this. Another actor appearing in Armageddon.
Another actor appearing in Armageddon, looking much more different than he had in the films leading up to it. I'll go with Billy Bob Thornton.
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah. Ben Affleck, of course, plays the second lead, AJ something or other.
Yes, he does.
The Bruce Willis's heir apparent.
Mm-hmm. All right, round 1 done. Steve Buscemi, in the immortal role of Rockhound, appears in the film Armageddon.
Called that because he's horny, which
indeed
never fully followed that trade. I guess because he's rock hard, or because hound.
He's a hound.
Is sometimes referred to as a pussy hound, but it's neither of those things. And yet,
it's
the line
both,
delivery treats it as if it's thuddingly obvious. I'm like, okay. Anyhow, Chris, you're up.
It's hard to top that one, but I will go with a gentleman who 1 year after Armageddon was nominated for an Academy Award. A gentleman who's no longer with us, but a kind soul, I imagine, Mr. Michael Clark Duncan.
Rest in power.
The great.
That's where I was going to go.
The great Michael Clark Duncan.
As Bear.
Oh, who can forget?
His breakout role.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I will go with essentially the Eastern Hemisphere's Michael Clark Duncan, Peter Stormare.
Oh, yes. A wonderful performance, to say the least. Mm-hmm. Who can forget Liv Tyler as Harry's daughter, Grace, I want to say.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm going to go with the butterscotch stallion himself, Owen Wilson.
You forget he's in there.
Yeah.
I'll go with everybody's favorite bank manager, old Billy Fichtner.
Oh, boy.
Very much.
I thought that was my ace in the hole.
Keith David appears in Armageddon.
He does. That's right.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Very much. We're going to trust the entire world to a bunch of retards I wouldn't trust with a potato gun.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I think I've only got one more here. Chris draws a blank.
I'm in trouble. I know there's that heavyset guy who was on Herman's Head, but I don't know his name.
What is his name?
He was in There
has to be a second woman in this movie somewhere too, doesn't there?
He was like the other. He was the other Santa in Bad Santa, but I don't know his name. I think I'm going to be taking the L on this one because I'm out now.
All right, I'm going to say Will Patton then.
Oh,
yeah, Will Patton. Will Patton, right there. Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
All right. Let me see. I know I got one more here. Let me see. It's getting down to it. Will Patton. Okay. Oh shit. What's his name? Eddie Griffin.
Oh, son of a
Yeah.
Wow.
He's totally in there.
With the little dog in the beginning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mauls the Godzilla
Can't
toy.
wait.
Great call. Great call.
I wish, God, it'd be such a pull if I could name the character actor who just screams at his wife about getting his book or whatever. But all right, I'll take last. So all right, it goes John, and then me, then Chris. It's going to be our order, right?
That is our order.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, and it is snaking, so you'll get after your third pick, you'll get the first pick of round 2. You know how this works.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I'm good with it.
Okay. All right, then we are starting the 90s action movie draft, round 1. I am going to take the first pick, and let me look at my list here. Didn't expect to have this. Let me see. Well, look, simply because we're talking most popular here, what's going to go? What do I want to make sure I've got? I will select. Well, shit, I'm just going to take The Matrix.
God damn it. All right,
Wow. That's surprising.
The only reason I hesitated to put that number 1, I mean, because look, it is the greatest action movie ever made.
Wow,
full stop. But it's also, to my mind, kind of the first movie of the 2000s.
I know,
more
it's
than
a
it's a
little bit
movie.
of a cheat. But it is 1999. It doesn't necessarily represent it, but come on, it's The Matrix. It is.
It's not representative of a 90s action movie, though.
No.
Well, I mean, the music, the fashion, the general vibe of it, it is forward thinking, and it's the sort of stuff they were into. But it all was born in the 90s. You know, there's goth shit in there. There's techno shit in there.
I would say it's a perfect bridge from the 90s to the 2000s. It's a great bridge action movie that kind of takes us from the end of one decade into another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's a masterpiece.
One millennia into another. Really.
Well,
and
yes,
I do think it's like,
there you go. Yeah,
it can be dramatic, but I really do think that is one of the most revolutionary movies. But style, like not fashion and filmmaking, both. I mean, it's hard to overstate the amount of influence The Matrix has. It's easy to kind of overlook given the diminishing returns of the sequels. But
that's what I was going to ask is, do the sequels take anything away from the original for you guys?
No.
No, they don't. And you know, I'm not the biggest fan nor the biggest detractor of the sequels, but the first one stands on its own so completely. It is a perfect experience.
Yes.
And none of the information you learned later makes it any less. You know, like the one arc in that film, Neo coming to realize his power and realize the nature of the world. All that is just so fantastic. The exposition in The Matrix. Is there any movie with better exposition than The Matrix? It's so face, just like, here you go. Here is what you won't need to know, and it's some of the most riveting cinema. It's wonderful
and
stuff.
it's delivered in like one of the best kung fu fights you'll ever see at parts too. Like, so the action is built in even into the exposition, and the action is incredible to this day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, groundbreaking stuff. The camera techniques, you know, the bullet time, of course, you know, that's why it would feel like an aughts film, really, is because everyone just did that for the next 5 years, you know,
all over the place. Yes,
in Shrek or whatever, you know, like it was just ever present and in commercials everywhere, and that's the hallmark of great film is how obvious its influence becomes in the immediate. I mean, one of the marks of the great film. So yeah, The Matrix, number 1, obviously.
But the other thing I think that makes it a transition into the 2000s is that it's so successful that the 2000s are marked by a greater embrace of like the sci-fi and fantasy elements that The Matrix used. I mean, you know, having the Star Wars prequels coming out at the same time, having Lord of the Rings at the same time, certainly accelerates that down the road to where now action movies are defined by superheroes.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, pre-Matrix, there's a lot more just cops and guns and cars running around. The odd plane full of convicts or whatever. But it's a lot more earthbound up until 1999 than it is in 2000 through, I guess, today, really.
I mean, you could say this is kind of a vanguard for the superheroes in a way. I think this is resembles what superhero movies became more than Batman '89 does. You know, it's about a superhero.
I mean, it really feels like a live action version of an older anime film. is
Yeah.
basically
Yeah, but
what
better
it does.
than any of the old
Well,
films
better,
are.
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Certainly more coherent.
Yes, no,
Anyway,
100%. But that's I always kind of felt like anime had a huge influence on that movie, and it just seems like a live action version of one of those kind of old ones that would be on cable late at night.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, so you started with the transition out of the 90s. I'm going to go with the transition into the 90s and pick Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
I was hoping you.
I assume it's going to air immediately following our Cameron-orama wrap up, where I just waxed rhapsodic about Terminator 2 all over again. It's just incredible. Also one of the greatest action movies ever made. One of the best movie villains ever. And the stunt work is incredible.
Yeah, that's a good call, because you can see the 80s in there, and you can see things becoming the 90s in real time in that film.
The CG, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's no argument against it. I mean, if you hadn't taken it, I would have. It's it's about basically as perfect an action movie as you're going to get. It's just between the effects, the action, the characters, the story. We just lost Earl Bowen yesterday, Dr. Silberman,
Yeah.
and so it's great that he's represented here in the number 2 pick. I'm sure you thought of that, of course, obviously, when you made that pick. But it's a fantastic movie, and I don't see how anyone can argue otherwise.
Indeed. No one's going to try.
No.
This
I
is
mean,
an obvious pick, an obvious first round pick, of course.
Yeah, that's a total money pick for sure.
Yeah, if we weren't confining this to the 90s, that would still be a perfectly respectable first overall pick.
If we were just doing the greatest action movies of all time, I'm sure T2 would be a top 5 at least.
Yeah. All right, so Chris, you got 2 now, back to back.
Okay, so like I said, yeah, T2 would have been if it had still been there. But for my pick, I'm gonna go, and I think this really shows how stealth an action star Keanu Reeves has become, because I'm gonna go with Speed. I'm going Speed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was my number 3 here too. That's what I would.
I think when I think of just your summer blockbuster action movie, that's the one. I mean, it's such a simple concept, but it's done so well. It's got everything you want out of these movies: a great hero, strong villain. I mean, an amazing villain, really. I think Dennis Hopper is kind of unsung for how incredible he is in that movie.
Iconic.
Yes.
I think it led to the next 10 years of roles he took.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, he got so much work because of that movie. I mean,
he got the Mario Brothers movie probably.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I know he got is right after that movie came out. The next football season, there was a whole ad campaign with Dennis Hopper as the crazy football fan, and I'm sure he got that because of Speed, because that's what kind of put him back into this is the crazy guy of the moment. So I'm sure he got that whole campaign because of Speed, and well deserved, because he is so much fun in it.
I mean,
and
you could say all 3 of the lead actors in that kind of got their
yes.
entire persona set by that film. Led to the next, at least the next decade of careers for Reeves, Dennis Hopper, Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, I was gonna say the other thing is that you have that you want in an action movie is a female lead who's elevating, material that doesn't give you anything special on the page, because this is a 90s action movie. There's not going to be a great. Well, I'm looking at my list. Maybe there's one movie on my list that has a good female role really in it.
Not a real hallmark of the 90s action film.
Not
Great
so
female
much.
roit's Yeah,
not so much.
That didn't happen too much. I have one movie on my list that literally has 0 women in it. Actually, I don't know if we'll get to that one, but it's there.
Okay.
So Speed. Honestly, I think this is an excellent first round. It's the outro of the 90s, the intro of the 90s, and then maybe the most 90s action movie ever, honestly, in Speed.
Well, it's 99, 91, and 95, right? Right, where the end, the beginning, and then just the apex in the middle is what it seems like,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
crazy.
much. I mean, and I think it's. I mean, who really would have predicted that we'd have two Keanu movies in the top three? Is I mean, it's just like that.
Yeah,
He is just really kind of been the most under the radar action star for like the last 30 years, and I
an
mean,
amazing career when you look at
yes,
it in its entirety. Yeah,
oh, absolutely,
he's
yeah,
got
and he.
another one that should be listed today, by
I
the way.
think possibly.
There's another one that's going to be in the top
Yeah.
five.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
just give it to you right now.
Okay,
But
okay,
if I were in Chris's seat, I would have gone with a Keanu double feature.
okay, yeah.
And if he
I,
Say
doesn't,
again.
I will.
I will not be. I will not be. So I
Okay.
will. I'll move on. Well, Speed is we all agree fantastic. So for the next pick, man, now this is kind of tough because
Yeah.
I,
The
I was
beginning of round two.
yes, I was hoping. I mean, I was really hoping to go with a T2 Speed sandwich, but that didn't quite happen. So I am going to go with my second pick. I'm going to go with an international or a foreign film. I'm going to go with John Woo's Hard Boiled.
Oh, great pick.
Yeah, there, he to me is the action god, and there's a lot that I feel like I could pick from him, but I'm since I do want to kind of showcase how great the and how awesome the foreign films were from this decade. I am going to go ahead and take Hard Boiled. It's just pure action dynamite from start to finish, and it's a movie I've seen so many times over the last 30 years, and I never get tired of it.
That's a perfect choice. Honestly, it's a representative choice of a whole wing of '90s action. It's it's a perfect John Woo choice. Guy made a
Yeah,
lot of films. He's gonna show up again.
yeah, I
He
bet.
is.
I did not even really think outside of Hollywood at all for this. I guess is a confession I should make. I just figured. I guess I thought we were. Maybe it's an understanding assignment thing. That's like, all right, we have so few slots to work with, and we're trying to represent the '90s in a way that, like, I was like, okay, so Hollywood action is what defines that to me. But yeah, most of these movies are not better action movies than Hard Boiled by a long shot. So
It's a
very good
wonderful
choice.
movie,
Oh,
and
it's yeah, yeah. I mean,
an,
it's something like nothing really. I mean, there have been a lot of movies since that one that have kind of had that similar style. I mean, God, the '90s is kind of littered with a lot of wannabe John Woo stuff. I mean, that's all over the place. But this, I just think this to me is this is the right time to be taking this movie for in my draft.
there
Okay.
were almost as many hard-boiled knockoffs as there were Pulp Fiction knockoffs in the '90s.
Yeah, yes,
Everything Chow Yun Fat did in America, sadly to say.
was
So that's
exactly. Uh-huh.
yeah.
Can I ask Chris, and maybe you can pass on this if you might still take another later in your draft, but was there any like comment for the John Woo spot? Were you ever thinking about going elsewhere than Hard Boiled?
Yes, yes. I kind of had this. If I'm taking a John Woo film in this round, I'm going to go this way. If I'm taking one in this round, I'm going to go that way. And for a second rounder, I'm going to go with Hard Boiled. But there are a lot of movies of his from this decade that could possibly show up again from me, and because like I said, I mean, he is just on fire in this decade, and he's the top guy in my opinion of all the action filmmakers that were working. He was the one who was just blowing me away the most.
So I guess it goes back to me, and I already declared my intention. I'm taking Point Break.
Okay,
The
there you go.
Keanu gets 3 of the 5
Wow, this
uh,
is Keanu
top
mania.
picks here. I mean, the '90s were his time. I mean, he's had a hell of a resurgence, but
But it's like I feel like we weren't really thinking that in the '90s, though. It's like we kind of
No,
think that
no.
now, but
The
it's like,
Matrix saved his career, and
yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, he never reached a point where it was like, oh, Keanu Reeves can open this movie. Like, I got to go see this Keanu Reeves movie. It was like, Point Break had Swayze and the sort of, high concept of, oh, he's surfing, skydiving bank robbers. And Speed, obviously, the premise sells that movie more than any star.
sure,
Uh,
sure,
but Point Break is just an amazing kick-ass action movie. It is so I mean, it's an amazing sort of like, I guess bromance is the best term for it, even though that is not a term that people love these days. But it is, yeah, it's a star-crossed bromance. I mean, they remade this movie as Fast and Furious, and it was still so good, even with lesser actors and lesser action, that it spawned a franchise. It's just a different, studio environment in the 2000s where you could make an entire franchise
right
about how much these guys love each other. But Point Break, it is a classic Shakespearean tragedy of a star-crossed romance. But also just incredible foot chase, great shootouts, just you got a skydiving fight at the end, basically, which is just incredible stuff. One of the things you want from a 90s action movie too is just a handful, at least, of just insane distinctive line deliveries that have no reason being like as odd and memorable as they are.
It's half the lines in the movie, maybe.
At this point, Point Break was one of the very first R-rated movies I ever saw, and so it's got a place in my heart for that reason. Sure. But we loved it at my house, and to this point, occasionally, if like my brother and I still, if he's rambling on about something, goes on a little too long, my way of cutting him off is just going, "Whoa, no way, Bells is bigger than Waimea, brah." That's a very bad James LeGros impression I just did, but or just all throughout college this day, if somebody's getting up to get a drink out of the fridge, you just yell the word Utah at them. You don't even have to say "get me two." You say Utah.
It's
iconic.
There are a few movies that had their finger on the 90s cultural zeitgeist more. Between just all the surf and the SoCal and the actors chosen to be in this movie, and even Gary Busey is part of that. It's such a perfect distillation of where culture was at and what you would see if you turned on MTV in the 90s, early 90s specifically.
You've got Anthony Kiedis cameoing as Goon number 4.
You got Tom Sizemore cameo.
Anthony Kiedis cameo is one of the most 90s sentences, like phrases you can apply to a movie.
It would be a waste of time.
Fantastic asshole captain in John C. McGinley. He is.
Oh my God, one of the best.
Fantastic. I love
You're
him.
a real Blue Flame special, aren't you?
It's like
oh my God,
he's
just seizing
phenomenal.
the scenery like a pit bull, and just in his jaws, and just shaking it back and forth and breaking its neck.
Yeah,
beautiful film.
The only movie on this entire draft, I'm going to just say now, that spawned a successful stage show.
As far as I know, I think you're right. I think you are correct. But I think a lot of these movies should be stage shows. Maybe not yet, but they should be.
Mm-hmm.
That's John. How would your next pick fare as on stage?
All right, let me see. I don't know. I might be. We've had just like masterpieces. I might be ready to kind of.
We got to slum it at some point.
Yeah.
My God.
Oh, believe me, I'm going to slum. Trust me.
Mm-hmm. And I believe that, I'm gonna start that right now. I'm gonna pick something. I think this is a surprise to go this early, but I want it, and it's Con Air.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
You can fight Chris for it, but you can have it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I don't think I would have taken it, but I do love it. I mean, I'm perfectly down with Con Air. I think it's another one, just a summer '90s blockbuster to a T. That's what that movie is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It is the most 90s. It is just it just keeps throwing these garish characters at you. There are just so many character actors just popping up. I mean, it was like when I was thinking about who to do the cast game for that we did with Armageddon. It would have been Con Air, except I was like, but I'm going to pick that.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Con Air for sure.
I'd have done way better with Con Air.
Well, it has a deep bench.
It does.
I don't know. There's probably like 15 notable names in this, and they're all playing characters with like hilarious names, like oh no, Johnny 23, or what's
Cyrus the Virus,
Billy Bedlam, Cyrus the Virus. Yeah, they're these ridiculous, over the top wrestling villains. Is
Yeah.
everybody in the
Well, and
cast?
I think maybe my favorite Dave Chappelle is Pinball.
He's
That's right.
the best Dave Chappelle performance, maybe.
Could be.
Certainly in a movie.
Well, I'm going to pick Robin Hood Men in Tights next, so
Oh, well, there you go.
we can talk about it then. No, so the reason why Con Air I don't think was going to be on my list is because when I think about what's fun about that is just the buffet of character actors just going for it and competing to see who can devour the most scenery.
Probably Malkovich, the winner there. Yeah.
I don't think of any particular action scene that is that memorable to me. Though, like, there's no like fight that I'm like, oh, that's a great fight or that's a great shootout. Just like, yeah, there's explosions and whatnot. I'm sure I know there are, but it doesn't stand out that much. Like, there's not a sequence in there that I can say is a standout action sequence the way that all these other movies we've named so far can.
I would disagree. There's the landing the plane on the Vegas Strip at the end is pretty spectacular. The middle sequence in the abandoned airfield has more like running from fireballs than just about any movie you've ever seen. It has a lot of I think the action is very of the 90s in that film. It's like a lot of jumping through glass windows, a lot of that, and it doesn't cut anybody up, that sort of thing. There are some fist fights in the plane. There's why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box? It's stuff like that. But it is the swagger is why I picked this. It is the
for sure,
the posturing, the over the topness, the maximalistness, the just the ridiculousness of these characters. You have a perfect lead man for this particular film in Nicolas Cage, giving almost a satire of an action movie.
It is.
Yeah, like he's so well suited to playing like the Rock characters, but no, in this he's like just playing, I don't know, a cartoon figure, a ridiculous absurdity. Cameron Poe. Yeah.
Well, the opening is iconic to me. That sets up his character because it is a trope of tons of action movies, but it is the most absurd version of it, which is the drunken asshole hillbillies want to pick a fight with a guy, and they find out that he is like a special forces Navy SEAL, whatever, and they're like, rather than being daunted by this, are like poking at his chest and being like, pussies like you were why we lost Vietnam. Whoa, what a swing. What are you even thinking? And then of course it's followed up by the judge, like, I mean, we have learned so much that like you got a military or a police badge anywhere, you can basically kill with impunity in this world. Much like without, even when you're not attacked, if you are made to feel anxious, you have basically a license to kill. And this judge is like, well, yes, there were 4 of them, and they attacked you with broken bottles, but your fists are deadly weapons, so I'm going to put you in jail for a decade.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Medal of Freedom notwithstanding.
Well, if I'm gonna praise John C. McGinley for Point Break, then I'm gonna go ahead and praise Cole Meany in Con Air. Another one of the great asshole cops of the decade. He's
a standout.
Oh man, he
manages to
great.
Yeah. Even in this cast of Danny Trejos and such, Cole Meany as the cop manages to make a mark. Yeah. It's wonderful. And there's Buscemi in there, just goofing it up, like that's. I mean, there's so much pleasure in a pure paycheck gig for Steve Buscemi.
Well, I love how he's this murderous, whatever Hannibal Lecter like killer, and they have the scene where he meets the little girl, and it's basically played for laughs. I mean, we're kind of laughing at the whole thing, and it's, I don't know, it's such a wild movie.
He's like a lovable child cannibal or something like that. It's weird. He's the mascot of the movie.
Really weird. It is such a strange thing to do with your Steve Buscemi, and they just go for it, and they don't answer any question you might have about it. It's just like, he's a lovable child cannibal or whatever. And they'll bring tension from that, and then they'll like give him a goofy one-liner back in the plane right after. So that's round 2. More Keanu. Got John Woo and got Con Air. So new round starting, round 3. I snake draft. I'm going to take the first pick. And let's see. How do I want to play this? Yeah, okay. I'm gonna take Ronin.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, good pick. Very good pick.
I guess that's almost like a Heat type pick where it's sort of there's one really good standout action scene and then otherwise
There are
Oh,
two.
I think
Yeah,
there's a few.
No,
I
but
think.
again, there's which one I'm talking about when I say that. Like, arguably, it's more of a crime thriller than an action movie, but I think that especially the one car chase is so, bravura that it does sort of like.
Yeah.
It almost, I was gonna say it elevates it, but it actually almost like what's the opposite of elevating? It pulls it down off of the like drama shelf and onto the action shelf.
It does. I mean, well, the exceptional thing about Ronin is the car chases, and there are two.
Oh,
the
yeah.
one in Nice,
Mm-hmm.
the tight corridors, and then of course the one in Paris,
Yes.
where they're driving against traffic. It's just some of the best car chase camera work that I think has ever been captured.
Yeah.
It is amazing stuff. When it comes to pure, like, I would be like, if I were doing a car chase draft, it might be my number one pick. I don't know what the competition even would be. I guess Bullet, but this would be my favorite, and it really took everyone by surprise.
I mean, Mad Max has got a few things to say about that. Terminator 2, perhaps.
Fair enough. Those are
Bad Boys
so
2.
Huge. Yes, these are all great.
Sort of almost real world car chases. It's like it's a straight line from like Bullet to the French Connection to Ronin.
And it is in that legacy, and it makes it kind of not 90s in its way, but man, the cast is sure 90s. The cast is just a not unlike Con Air in its way, just a murderer's row of serious actors having a blast. It's just great work from everyone. And,
De Niro, Sean Bean, Stellan Skarsgård, John Reno. It's just
Jonathan Pryce, Natasha McElhone only exists in the 90s. It's a blast.
She was banished to Showtime on at the stroke of midnight, New Year's Eve, 2000.
Yeah, I always kind of look at it as this was the end of De Niro's prime. Like that doesn't mean that he didn't do anything good after. There's stuff he's done since that I've liked, but I always look at Ronin as like, okay, this was the end of the prime. Now he's going to segue into more kind of a lot of sitcom movies, Analyze This, Meet the Parents and all that, a lot of that. And he's done stuff that I've liked a lot since, but Ronin I always kind of mark as, in terms of his prime, this was the last one for him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he is kind of doing grumpy old man in this already, but after this, like it's a full 2-arm embrace of the grumpy old man persona.
Right.
I mean, it is kind of the end of middle-aged De Niro too. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the end of middle age for him, and it's kind of where everyone in the cast is
a little
to
bit.
Some extent, and that's kind of fun. That this is an older cast. It's an international cast. I think they're all kind of from a different country. Is sort of the idea, and
that's Sean Bean as the young punk,
Yeah,
exactly.
He's like 38.
That tells you a lot right there.
Oh
yeah, no,
it's just an oddly rewatchable movie. There's a lot of innocent bystander death in it, which is always what you want. In the 90s
That's a 90s thing,
definitely. It's all over the place.
And yeah, I mean, if it's, I think this is a scene movie, but if anyone hasn't seen it, we're talking about great 90s action. This I think is maybe a little unsung.
I think so. I mean, it wasn't like a gigantic hit when it came out. I think it did okay, but it was a movie that I think sort of flew under the radar. But yeah, it's I think great movie, great pick, great cast, and if anybody hasn't seen it, they need to right away.
Yeah, I think our audience probably seen Ronin.
Probably by now.
It's it's a blast. So yeah, that's my that's my number 3 pick. That and Con Air, a pair of massive 90s ensembles. They're all kind of about attitude and poise, just very different attitudes and poise.
Yes,
exactly,
for sure.
Professionalism versus pro wrestling swagger. It's the dichotomy there. All right, now I guess we're in the third round here. I'm going to go with. I know I said I wasn't doing historical epics, but I'm going to go with The Mask of Zorro.
I was playing with that one as an idea. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
This one is underrated. I think should have the sort of like generational reappraisal and love that The Mummy gets.
Okay.
is my opinion.
Wow.
They're of a piece. They're very similar. They're that,
Yeah.
that sort of 30s pulp kind of thing, but done to the nines with 90s camera and special effects and stunts and It's
Well,
great.
this one, but is this in contrast to the Mummy, has actually great action scenes.
No CGI.
It does.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Great. And
No.
Chris, great sword fights, horse riding stunts, swinging around, one of the best swashbucklers that's ever been made.
Yeah.
Certainly, once Errol Flynn was out of the picture. And I wonder if maybe part of the reason why it hasn't gotten the same reappraisal as the Mummy is a little more PG and chaste. And maybe there's there's at least one scene in this where the sexual politics are maybe not up to Twitter standards these days, where he's
I don't
like,
know, it's pretty horny though. I mean, that's kind of cool.
yeah, that's the thing. I almost feel like that I can't bring myself to even get an opinion on that, because it's 90s. This is Antonio Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones in the 90s.
Yeah.
These people are phenomenally sexy. They are so absurdly hot that it's like I don't know, do issues of consent even get into it? These people kind of have to bone, if only in the interest of science.
Yes.
Let's see what kind of superhuman we could make. What can we do to beauty?
It's a fun movie. I mean, I think that Anthony Hopkins as a Mexican is probably
That's the part.
that's
That
probably
is-
part of it
that's
too.
going to get the trouble. I think he's
He's still
convincing
good.
though. Yeah, he is.
he's
He's
really
good.
in the movie.
Well, he's convincing as an aged swashbuckler anyway, regardless of nationality.
Right.
And it'd be one thing. It's, I guess, I don't know. Is it like Johnny Depp in The Lone Ranger or something? If the Antonio Banderas role was some white guy in brownface, that'd be one thing. But
Well, it's also like Connery in The Highlander. It's a little
right,
little
exactly.
of that, too. Yeah.
And when it's the older figure who's receding into the background anyway, I don't know, it doesn't jump out as me as quite as offensive.
Yeah.
Well,
But
the other guy, the bad guy, Stuart Wilson, is the same deal. It's another Englishman playing a Mexican guy. I think it's a
is
good
he even
villain.
Is he even playing a Mexican? I think he's playing a Spaniard. I guess it doesn't make a difference. I don't know.
Oh, well, that
hey,
would make more sense. It's been a while, I'll tell you. But I'd like to revisit it.
Or
That's a
no,
fun
wait,
one.
Stuart Wilson, is he playing an American cavalry guy or something?
No, that's the second guy. Stuart Wilson is the Anthony Hopkins antagonist and the cavalry guy
okay,
is the
okay.
Banderas antagonist.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, he is a Mexican general then.
Yeah,
You're right.
It's super good. Is this in the continuum of how after Batman everyone was like, we got to do 1930s properties now?
Yeah, the Phantom.
Yeah,
There's
Shadow,
a lot of
Dick
that in
Tracy.
the 90s.
Until John Carter of Mars put the kibosh on that for good.
It's weird that we didn't. No one was like, oh, well, people want superhero movies. They want no. They didn't think that. They were like, they want 1930s news strip characters. Yeah,
that was all over the place for sure.
I think maybe just that Tim Burton's sort of unique style may have given them a false positive on that. Wow, he really it's gangsters and pinstripes. And maybe is that what people were reacting to? And no, it was the Batwing flying up in front of the moon and firing missiles at a parade.
Yeah,
that's what we were more into.
that actually is not the vibe of Mask of Zorro. Zorro very much is.
No.
It has its own kind of. Well, I mean, it's recontextualizing the 30s serials in a nice way. It's very good at it.
Very,
Martin
But it's got
Campbell, by the way.
modern pacing.
I was
which
going to
helps.
say Martin Campbell, very under the radar, awesome action director. Doesn't get talked about enough, but I mean, he's made some dogs, but everyone has, so no big deal. But I mean, he's made some
one of the best
really
journeymen.
but
he might show up on this list twice when people like James Cameron or John Woo might not.
Yeah, that's possible.
I don't know. I think his best film did go first, though. I like this one a lot. It's very good. Yeah,
he's got his second best movie is another very 90s action movie, though. So
totally.
we can
We'll
see if we get there.
Yeah.
Let's see how Chris is going to round out round 3.
Yeah, so let's see. There's some items that are still around that I did not think would be. So I'm kind of on the fly. Kind of my strategy is shifting a little bit. So I'm gonna go with, I mean, look, how can we do 90s action without making sure that Arnold is not well represented? And I'm gonna go with Total Recall.
Ah,
Fair
okay.
enough.
That was
Yeah,
probably my next pick. Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just feel like you got Arnold, Verhoeven, and it's just such a perfect mix, and it's just a just a wild sci-fi action epic that
Hmm.
again is, thank God it was made when it was made, because we saw with the remake what a version of it would look like, 15 years later or 25 years later, whatever it was. Thank God that movie was made when it was made, so we got those just incredible practical effects.
Is that
Yeah.
Rob Bottin? Am I
Yeah,
wrong on that?
I believe
I
that's
think
that.
I
He's
did the thing. Yeah.
yes,
Is
yes,
this
Oh.
is this the peak of the like civilian collateral damage murders?
Oh, for sure. For
This is
sure.
where just grabbing him, like
yes.
literally grabbing him, using him as human shields.
Yeah, that moment. I mean, man, if like I'm gonna be taking another very mean action movie, but Total Recall is a very mean movie. I mean, it's and I love mean action movies more than just action movies in general. I love mean ones, and Total Recall is just does not give any fucks. It just is so, that does not care if they're who is getting killed for what reason, and it's just Verhoeven. That was his bread and butter. He did the innocent people meant nothing to Paul Verhoeven.
Mhm. Well, I mean, it feels pointed in that he was trying to make a point about some people
Oh, sure.
not mattering to 80s action movies, because I think it's more satirizing 80s action movies than 90s action movies, just because of how time works in production.
Sure. I mean, it was one of the first great action movies of the '90s, and it's coming on the heels of RoboCop. I mean, what a just a perfect 1-2 punch right there. Is
Right.
just so good. And I had the chance to see it on the big screen a few years ago, and that was a great experience. And
Oh, that
and,
sounds great.
and what's amazing is, I feel like Ronnie Cox, he gets a lot of credit for RoboCop, and I don't think he gets enough for Total Recall, because God, he is maybe even more maniacal than Dick Jones is Ronnie
He's.
Cox in Total Recall.
I think he's definitely more maniacal. he's
Yeah.
he's really swinging for the fences in that. Yeah.
Yes.
He's having a blast. Every line reading in his big scenes at the end is just as much mustard as possible.
For my money, if we're talking about main villain henchman combo, there's nothing better than Ronnie Cox and Michael Ironside in Total Recall. I mean, I can just watch those guys forever chasing Arnold.
Perfect
Yeah.
group. And you got Sharon Stone and that and Ironside's henchman, the henchman to
Yes.
the henchman in
Oh,
that
that
is
guy is
great
great
too.
too.
Yeah.
Oh, him just kind of giving Michael Ironside crap for Sharon Stone being with Arnold all that time. Oh, I'm sure she hated it. It's such good stuff. And yeah,
Yeah.
so and I love the look of it. And if that movie had been made 10 years later, the look would not be what it is. And I just think that whole
Yeah.
design of the film is just such great practical design, effects work, everything. It just looks great.
It's all that and Aquato too.
There you go.
There's actually so much genre stuff going on in Total Recall that I would almost be like, I don't know if I'd quite call this an action movie over a sci-fi movie or a satire or whatever. Much like the other big Verhoeven movie here that I adore, but I'm struggling with for this list. But the fact that Arnold is front and center and it's at his most Arnold in this kind of makes it an
Yes.
undeniable action film classic. It's him doing his thing. Yeah.
All
Totally.
right, Chris, you got one
Okay.
more pick
Yep.
here.
So, like I said, I went with a mean movie just now, and I'm gonna keep the mean train going, because to me, probably the meanest action movie of the '90s,
Mm.
the 1991's The Last Boy Scout, is
You son
basically,
of a
Ooh, yeah,
I
that's
I
Oh,
mean,
oh
I
man, that was definitely my next pick.
I
Okay,
mean,
okay. Really? Ooh,
it's a movie where everybody, pretty much all the principals involved, all hated each other, and it all comes out perfectly in the movie. Thank God they hated each other, because I feel like that whole vibe carries over beautifully. I mean, basically, you had in this movie, Bruce Willis is the star. was produced in part by Joel Silver, directed by Tony Scott. These are all three people who were extremely prolific for many years and never worked together any of those combinations ever again on anything. It's just such a. I know I read a great book a few years ago all about the big comedic actors, Wild and Crazy Guys, and there's a segment in it where Steve Martin talks about watching. There's a whole segment about Steve Martin seeing The Last Boy Scout and just being disgusted by it, and just he just and I just feel like, yes, that's how Steve Martin should react to The Last Boy Scout. That's perfect, and it's just the dialogue, the action, it's all very mean spirited, and that's what I love about it, and that's why I'm going to go ahead and take The Last Boy Scout.
It's a venal, disgusting, great film. The Shane Black. It's my favorite Shane Black script.
Yeah, I agree.
I think
there's some good ones.
Yeah, there are. There might be better movies, but man, that one just screams Shane Black to me. It is, as you say, it's a buddy cop film where they just hate each other, and that doesn't really change.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the great thing about it is that it takes the buddy cop sort of friends to enemies template to such an extreme that it almost forgets to make them actually friends at the end.
I mean, and I don't know, it has that format, but it's very much the Bruce show, like Damon Wayans is in support of him in this. And I think this is, I mean, taking aside, Die Hard, John McClane, which, I don't know, morphed into kind of a very boring, bland thing, ultimately. This is maybe my favorite Bruce Willis persona film. Leaving aside Die Hard, probably the finest encapsulation of his movie star persona and why he's good in movies and why he can carry them and why he makes them work. I mean, it's a successful Hudson Hawk in a sense. It's and it's really funny. The script is actually really, really clever. The dialogue is exceptional. There's so many throwaway gags in this and clever lines. The daughter, Danielle Harris, right?
God, yeah.
The foul-mouthed daughter character is the best that's ever been deployed. It's crazy how many kids Shane Black puts in his movies and how it always works.
Give or take a Last Action Hero.
Yeah, right.
I
immediately regretted saying that. The Predator.
But man, it worked like a charm in Last Boy Scout, Iron Man 3, and the Nice Guys.
Very much. Yeah.
He's got a knack for that.
Yeah. It's. I mean, the opening of the movie is like.
Amazing.
I mean, like how. It's like. I don't think you could ever in a million years be done today. It's just so, what in the hell is going on here right now?
It is iconic. I knew that opening. I had seen it and like for years before I actually saw the movie, and I could never figure out like it. It's sort of scarring. Like it imprinted itself on me. I could never figure out what the actual movie attached to that would be.
I wouldn't even say it's that attached to it.
It's not. That's the thing. Yeah. It's a totally different thing it's not really about football. It's a totally different thing. But it's still just a sort of, I don't know. I mean, maybe iconic's the wrong word, but a really indelible opening sequence.
Oh, yeah.
It's ugly right from the start.
Even the opening credits, which is like placed over a fake "Are you ready for some football" song.
Dude, Bill Medley should have gotten at least a best song nomination for that. He is I love that song. That song it's a perfect song to get you hyped for football. That whole Friday night's a great night for football.
It is. He's talking about the fictional teams within the Last Boy Scout universe in that song.
Oh, it's great.
The Cats and the Stallions are ready to do it. It's just so. Oh God, the details in this film. It's
great.
Wonderful. Bruce McGill having sex with Bruce Willis's wife and then gets blown up. It's man. Yeah.
Head or gut.
Yeah. The last thing that I want to mention about that is just that. The Taylor Negron villain performance.
He's awesome.
What a left field choice and a massive payoff. Yeah.
But great. Also, like, what a great awareness on his part. Like, okay, here's the thing. This is Bruce Willis playing a super cop. Like after a couple of diehards, I can't credibly be like a threat to him. So I really just have to like stand out by way of like sliming it up as hard as humanly possible, and that's how I'm going to like make my mark here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go toe to toe with them or anything. Like it's just I have to be the sleaziest, slimiest fuck anybody's ever seen on screen.
Yeah, he
stands out in a movie full of sleazy, slimy fucks too.
And just the brief role for Kim Coates. Oh, I mean, just I love his whole arc is very brief, but it's spectacular.
It's the haiku of a 90s action movie arc. You know, he's only got 12 syllables to work with, but we get the complete experience.
Booba, baby!
So many good lines in that film. Oh, yes, we do, officer. It appears there's too many bullets in this gun.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So now, wait, that's round 4, right?
That's first pick of round 4. Yep.
To you.
Okay. This is a tough one for me because I know for round 5 what I want. It's personal to me, and I know it's like safe. So this is the last choice where I'm like, okay, I've got 3 of them that I got to narrow it down for. I guess I already have a Banderas on here, so I can cross one off. And then it's maybe, do I want to go mean or nice with my sci-fi comedy stuff?
Well, it's the 90s. Mean would probably be the... Well, I'll leave it to you. Leave it to you.
All right. Can we really go through this? All right, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to try and force John to do my dirty work for me and pick the mean one. All right, I'm going to go with Men in Black.
Okay.
Which is another, I think, sort of maligned blockbuster. And the sequels don't do a lot of favors for it. As far as I know, I've never seen any of them all the way through. But that first one is a really kind of ideal action comedy family, like 4-quadrant blockbuster. Like if we could get PG-13 sci-fi action movies like of this cleverness and, you know, and budget and everything on the regular, I think we'd be a lot happier with the state of theaters.
It's tough because there's almost nothing worse than a failed Men in Black ripoff.
That is, you're right. That's a really good point.
So if somebody gets 75% of the way to a Men in Black, that's no bueno. It doesn't.
You get a Wild Wild West.
You get a Wild Wild West, yeah, or an R.I.P.D. They keep trying, you know, There's it's a bad scene if they fuck it up, like the Men in Black sequels. Even it's a very like deceptively hard cocktail to get right.
Yeah, and that's why I think it lends itself to being underestimated or whatever, because the whole thing about comedy is when it works, it makes everything look really easy and breezy. And when you have Will Smith at the height of his powers and Tommy Lee Jones at the apex of his, maybe not his crankiness, but his lovable crankiness, you know, he's...
Yeah. I don't think we fully knew how much of a crank he was when the movie came out. And so it was maybe a few years later when we realized, that's really him. That's how he is. And
he's like a funny dude at this point.
He's funny.
He's doing like Under Siege and The Fugitive. He's funny in.
Yeah,
he is. Yeah, you're right. He's funny in The Fugitive, but also like you could miss even there because you could also get Batman Forever, Tommy Lee Jones, where he's like trying a little harder to be funny or to be big funny.
A wild fail, yes.
And here he's a foil for Will Smith, which is perfect.
Or you get Natural Born Killers, Tommy Lee Jones, and that's a whole other story. But yeah, I'd say in Men in Black, he
is funny in that.
That's the best asset of the movie is the relationship between him and Will Smith. I'm not really into a lot of the kind of the semi-Muppet kind of creature stuff going on.
I think the creature design's great. I was gonna say that's the second best asset.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just not as into it. I mean, I guess if I know, well, it was a big hit, so lots of people loved it. So what am I talking about? But I just feel like you have a good core relationship, and that's basically the strength of the movie.
It's a giant hit, but it's nobody's favorite movie.
No,
that's the thing. And that's why I chose to highlight it here is like, because I think it's a solid number 4 on a list type of movie for if it's, you know, specific to 90s with another qualifier. But I would say it's the summer where Men in Black, if you have a summer movie season where the best blockbuster is as good as Men in Black, that's a fine blockbuster season. If it's worse than that, that's a bad blockbuster season, is my sort of opinion. I mean, you got Rip Torn in there too, and Vincent D'Onofrio really going for it.
D'Onofrio's amazing in that movie. He's really something.
And Linda
great effects
Fiorina.
work around him.
I think my thing is I always thought of that as more of a comedy than anything else. Like,
Yeah.
pure
That's fair
effects
enough.
comedy, Ghostbusters style kind of thing. You know, like it certainly oozes 90s-ness. And Will Smith was an action guy, so to speak.
Yeah. And there's two other Will Smith action movies on here on my list that I could have gone with, but I think they're a little more obvious. Like, people don't need to. I mean, I don't want to step on anybody else's choices if they're going there, but nobody needs me to remind them that Independence Day is a fun action movie. Like, it's there. But I do think around Men in Black has its stature in the discourse is lower than its actual quality deserves, is my opinion. Much like Mask of Zorro.
Yeah, it could be. It's been a second. I should rewatch Men in Black. It's a good time, and it's like 90 minutes. I love that about it.
Yeah,
it's an in and out kind of thing. It's very creative. It's very Sonnenfeld. Back when he was like a very good director. What happened to that guy? Yeah.
RV. That's what happened to him.
And it was an original concept. It was the first.
Yeah.
Now it's been run into the ground a bit because we had 4 of them or whatever, but it's almost the last time when you could do this scale of sci-fi action or comedy without having it tied to either a remake of a TV show from the 70s or a comic book.
It was cool that it came when it did. It was, I think Men in Black was a comic book, actually.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was one of those comic books that nobody ever read. It's
right, yeah, like the original Black and White Ninja Turtles comic
or
book.
like
exactly.
or like Time Cop was a comic book before, but who the hell ever read Time Cop the comic?
It does say it is loosely based on a Marvel comic book series. Okay, so it was, but it's not like that was a selling point. You know what I mean?
No,
it was
They actively didn't want you to know things were based on comics back then.
Right,
that's true. Yeah.
No, it's not.
No, it's based on a 1930s news strip serial.
Yeah.
I swear.
Yes. That's what sells.
It also came at the time, when X-Files was really gearing up. So I think that there was a little more consciousness of the concept of the Men in Black and aliens. It was just sort of in the conversation. And people were aware of it, and it was like, let's make a movie about the guys behind the scenes, and it's a fun comedy. That's very timely. I mean, that's a movie that probably would have hit whenever it came out, but it came at the right time too.
And for this to be a list of 90s action movies, I needed to get Will Smith and Aliens onto it somehow. So this allows me to do both in one strike.
Yeah, without doing the other one. Yes.
All right, John.
This is tough now because we're kind of getting to the point of, where there's a real chance of things not making the list here.
Yeah,
things that belong on this list.
I know.
There's some. I mean, I've got representative films for some of these people, but that doesn't mean necessarily that these big, important, very good movies should be left off.
I'm really getting worried.
I have room on my list. Yeah. Or do I pick the ones that I really want to pick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to help you out here. You can't fuck it up any worse than I just did. So go.
All right, I'm going to
Call your feelings.
I'm going to go representative then. I'm going to do something that I think is speaks to the 90s in a very specific way and succeeds very much on its own merits. Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this is a really good movie. I think it's a lot of fun. It's definitely the best Die Hard sequel, without a question. And it shrieks 90s. It is all the things I want from a 90s action movie. It also I love what it takes the format of Die Hard and just shakes it up. It doesn't be like, okay, well, we're just going to do a specific location at Christmas. It's over with that. We're doing a big citywide chase that's going to last the entire movie. It's going to have a witty script with Samuel L. Jackson kind of at the height of his power, right off of Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Going to come in and just class up the joint and say some shitty things to Bruce, and that's going to be great. Jeremy Irons having a lot of fun. I love the ensemble cast of just like New York faces in this. There's a lot of character actors that
Yes.
aren't like obvious people, but that you see in a lot of other films because they're like New York theater actors doing a great job. It's a blast.
It does. It reminds me of The Fugitive a little bit in that I almost wish that they had gotten their U.S. Marshals of just another movie of Bruce Willis and all of his New York cop buddies doing a big crime thing. It doesn't have to be like a specific Die Hard thing, but just the other cops are a great addition to this. That Die Hard has always been defined by claustrophobia and the setting and all of that, and this was sort of like blowing that. After Die Hard 2, it's like, okay, we can't
do that.
This is a well that we have dug out the bottom of. Like, we can't go do this anymore.
They could easily have been like,
they made the right choice to not do that.
I mean, every other film made that choice. Like, this one's on a battleship. This one's on a bus.
There was a battleship and a cruise ship in the 90s.
Right.
All the time.
We both got there.
A rocket ship come up with what was the Entourage joke? Die Hard at Disneyland.
Death on the Matterhorn.
Yeah, like it's all doable, and they were just like, you know what, we got to move beyond that. The series will stop evolving if we don't move beyond that. And then
we didn't get Die Hard at Disneyland ever. I guess Beverly Hills Cop 3.
They sort of tried. Yeah. They tried a little bit of that.
Half-assed it. Yeah.
Very quarter-assed it, really. But
we talked about Con Air, but I feel like they tried it on a plane a couple of times. But that seems like a great idea, and then you run right into the thing of a plane's really not big enough of a stage, for like a cat and mouse game like that.
Well, you get to where
they did it a number of times.
Well, they did it. I mean, I don't think this will be drafted.
Past 57, Air Force One.
Right, past 57. Well, they just got to the point where it was like, there's not much we can do on this plane. Let's just land it in the middle of the movie and have them go to a fair. They go to a fair for about 20 minutes and just kind of hang out and do stuff. So it's like there isn't
57 is a real piece of shit.
No. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that at all, but I'm just saying it won't be taken in this draft. Yeah, I'll say that much. But it's
got a somewhat memorable villain.
Oh, Bruce Payne, he's great. Elizabeth Hurley is a villain.
Yeah, she sure is. Why do I remember Passenger?
Liz Hurley deserves some sort of honorable mention on any 90s list. We just need to acknowledge her, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's not on any of my movies. Not on the list here. Okay.
No, but with The Vengeance, that's a great pick. I mean, they is a great. I am going to say it's not my favorite of the sequels, though. I am going to go.
Oh, you too?
I'm a 2 guy. I'm a 2 guy through and through. But I love 3. I think 3 gets a little wonky towards the end. That's where they could have done better in maybe the last 15 minutes or so. But it's a great movie. It's a great 90s action movie.
Yeah,
Die Hard 2 certainly is in contention for one of like the meaner.
Yeah, that's
action. Action movies.
I've gone too mean already, so I'm not. It won't show up for me. But if I have to pick which one I prefer out of the sequels, I'm gonna go Die Hard 2. I think it's the Dennis Franz factor that puts it over the top for me. But that's just me.
He's great.
That tracks. I love the John Amos of it all too. But all right, with A Vengeance for me was hovering around the edge of my list too. But what pushed off one was that, sort of like the others, it doesn't have the standout action scene. I'm like, oh, that's a superlative chase or a superlative gunfight or something. I think of that, it's almost more of a thriller. Like the fun sequences, the memorable sequences are like puzzles that they're trying to solve. It's bomb defusing sequences and stuff, and it's the character interaction stuff.
True enough. But the bombs are like such a 90s thing.
Absolutely.
Bomber is such a 90s trope, and
absolutely
it's the best one, I think. Probably.
But I just don't think it has as good of action as Die Hard 1 or 2. And then once Last Boy Scout gets off the table, it's like, okay, we've already got a Bruce Willis in a black and white buddy cop situation represented here. That's what edges it out of my list. Yeah.
Even though it doesn't have like the straight up shootouts of the first 2 movies, the one in the elevator is pretty damn awesome.
That's just a good it's a good sequence, but it's not exactly an action sequence. That's what I was tripping on.
But I love that guy. I mean, it's just so like God, it's just so violent for just this. It's a movie that overall it's not that crazy violent. I mean, there is blood, but man, that scene is like, holy shit, this is a violent goddamn movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
but I say that 5 or 6 different times in Die Hard 2.
No, I know.
I speak to the eye.
Yeah.
The rote recitation of the Die Hard 1 formula is the thing that keeps 2 back, and all love to William Sadler,
Mhm.
the villain,
Giving it his all.
Yeah, he ain't Hans Gruber, or Simon Gruber even. So that I give the edge to 2. I could have I give the edge to Vengeance. I could have taken 2 right now, and ultimately I come down for 3. I think that is a judgment call.
That's a perfectly
Yes.
respectable call.
Reasonable minds may disagree on which Die Hard sequel is best.
It's not a point that I'm going to argue, but I'm just gonna go on the record. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I think if we put this on the ballot, you win that one, John. Like, with a Vengeance is better thought of by the public than Die Hard 2, Die Harder.
Mm-hmm.
What's your final pick going to be?
This sucks because there's 3 movies that belong on this list, as I see it. I don't think any of them would be my ultimate choice right here. I'm struggling with this. I'm trying to decide whether. I've already got my Nicolas Cage is the thing. I don't want a Cage heavy draft here. All right. I'm going to disdain class and decorum, and I'm going to pick John Woo's Hard Target.
Oh,
for
fantastic!
the 5th spot.
Fantastic!
I'm disappointed that you didn't pick Starship Troopers because I was counting on somebody to throw it in there when I went with the Will Smith route.
Starship Troopers is one of the best films of the decade, but
absolutely,
it is, the action in it,
That's
secondary to the satire and
the action's pretty damn great too, though.
It's very good. It's very good. It works as an action movie, but it's not what makes the movie great.
And we're here to talk about Hard Target anyway. So
exactly. And Hard Target is very much the action that makes the movie great. That's John Woo's American debut. It is a ridiculous film. It's a lot of fun. It has an amazing cast. It's definitely my favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, with a bullet. There's no question. I think it's the only great movie he's made.
Whoa!
He plays. Right. Yes, the only one.
Oh my god! All right. Okay. I love how you took Hard Target, but you're still making me mad. That's the part. That's the part that's upsetting. That's not right. But okay.
That's the jujitsu shit.
A screamingly 90s film with Van Damme with a mullet to beat the band as Chance Boudreaux. Cajun,
because his mama took one, as I understand it.
Yeah, his mama took one. Absolutely. What is he doing? He's not a
merchant,
homeless guy.
Well, he's homeless, but he does work as a merchant marine.
Yeah.
He does work as that, but he's mostly a homeless guy because he can't afford. He has to pay like the union dues, I think, to get on his next voyage, and he doesn't have the money to pay those dues, so that's why he takes the job. Yeah.
You guys, I need some help here because I need to confess a couple of things.
Yeah.
One, this is the first movie we talked about that I have not seen.
Oh my!
Wow.
2, I have never understood what a merchant marine is. Am I to understand that Jean-Claude Van Damme is playing a Cajun Llewyn Davis in this movie?
No, he's playing a Cajun Jean-Claude Van Damme. It's he's tank top and mullet, and there's no musical stylings to Chance Boudreaux, really. He's
wasn't
more
that
about
what was trying to get a union card to be on a ship? Wasn't that part?
That is what Van Damme's trying to do in the movie. The exact amount that he charges Yancey Butler to help her find her dad in the movie is the exact amount he needs to get his dues all paid up so that he can go on his next voyage. So it's like he's homeless, but he has ambition at least. I mean, it's a different kind of situation, I guess. But I don't 100% understand what a merchant marine. I just know they work on ships and they get paid and
a foreign legionnaire on the water is my best guess, but I don't know either.
Well, later on, Van Damme.
If I were a real dick, I'd ask you to explain what a foreign legionnaire is.
Well, that's a few years later. Van Damme was the Legionnaire. That was another movie.
Yeah.
So he's covered the whole gambit.
Mhm.
So the other thing that I've come to learn about this movie is that I believe Wilfred Brimley plays a Cajun.
Yes,
He sure
Uncle,
does. He
that
plays
right?
he plays Van Damme's Cajun uncle. He lives in the swamp and makes
yeah,
moonshine and rides around on a horseback and
yes,
shoots people with arrows.
Uncle Duvet.
Uh,
Okay, I know what I'm
Uncle
doing tonight.
Duvet. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
dude. Oh, do you know the
he's
premise of this film? Do you know what the plot of this is?
I thought it was like surviving the game,
Yes.
dangerous game type of
it's
It
thing.
is.
the same
It
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
rich people hire homeless men and hunt them for sport across the New Orleans. I guess the Bayou,
Mhm.
the
And,
general vicinity of New Orleans. Yeah,
and the
and
French Quarter too.
yeah, a little.
Yeah.
And they're chasing them with spear guns and shit. It's
Oh my God.
Lance Henriksen.
Is
And
there a fan boat chase in this movie?
yes, there's a fan boat chase.
Oh, okay.
Wait,
God
is
damn
there
it.
a fan boat chase?
No, they have.
I don't know if
There's
there is. There's a swamp chase.
What a missed opportunity, if
Mhm.
not.
there's a helicopter chasing Van Damme on horseback chase.
You will not be disappointed with the action
No.
in this film. It is John
No.
Woo just going for it. It's Lance Henriksen and Arnold Vosloo
Yes.
are the bad guys in there.
There's a
Oh,
90s
it's-
name for you.
Oh, big time! And there are many scenes. It's Wilfred Brimley as the Cajun uncle on the horseback with the bow and arrow. It is Yancey Butler of Man and Machine fame as the girl. Van Damme, mullet, tank top, high kicks, all at the peak of his physical abilities. And yeah, John Woo swinging for the fences. The end of this movie takes place in a derelict Mardi Gras float factory.
Yes.
That is where the final action scene takes place.
And it's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That sounds wonderful.
It's what a film. It is really, really punching above its weight class. This is like a low budget Van Damme film of the type he was making, of the maximum risk, sudden death. That kind of programmer knockoff style.
This was where he basically became Universal's action guy, because this was kind of the first of his string of movies he did for Universal, and he was like the official Universal Pictures or Universal Studios action guy, and that kind of started with Hard Target.
I mean, I think one of the reasons why I never saw this one is because I only recently, recently in the last 6 or 7 years, learned that it was a John Woo movie. To me, like in the 90s, it was just on the shelf with all the other Jean-Claude movies that nothing made it stand out.
Well, even though that I would wildly disagree
with movie, right?
Even though, I will. Sudden Death. Well, that's a great one too. That's Peter Hyams. He's a fine director.
It's all right.
He's a fine director.
No, it's a Die Hard ripoff.
Yeah, it's a Die Hard ripoff. That's the one that's got Powers Booth as a villain. I feel like Powers Booth should have been the villain in like 6 different Die Hard ripoffs in the 90s if people hadn't been fucking up.
I failed to mention, but he also is involved in Con Air. He's doing all the voiceover at the start of Con Air, telling us how great Nicolas Cage was in battle. That's Powers Booth. So
I forgot there was voiceover.
Yeah, that's the whole kind of telling us how great and honorable Nicolas Cage was. That's all Powers.
Let's not forget this Cameron Poe's a Medal of Honor winner. Yeah, of course.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, so even though I wildly disagree with the statement that Hard Target is Van Damme's only great movie, I will say that if I was going to recommend one movie to a non-Van Damme fan, it would be Hard Target, because it is him basically at his mainstream best, where you don't have to be a fan of his other movies to enjoy Hard Target.
Yeah, it's John Woo. It's John Woo.
And you would recommend it despite the lack of a fan boat chase, even though it's on the bayou.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it may not have that, but it does have Ted Raimi as a real jerky guy walking through the French Quarter, because Sam Raimi was a producer on it, so Ted Raimi does show up in Hard Target.
Every bit as good as a fan boat chase.
Exactly.
All right, let me, guys. From a lack of a fan boat, I'm gonna really show you up, because my last pick involves a hovercraft chase. Do you guys know where I'm going here?
I don't think you're going Die Another Day.
Well, wait a minute. If you had said Speedboat, I would know, but no,
that's Face Off. But no, I'm not going there. I'm going with Rumble in the motherfucking Bronx.
Oh my! Okay.
All right.
Well,
this is a special movie to me. It was my introduction to Jackie Chan.
That's okay.
And it is a cornucopia of absolutely insane delights everywhere you look. It is, I mean, arguably not 90s, even 90s-ish enough, because it's like almost out of time, that the fashions make no sense in any decade. But you want to talk about just random line readings that stick with me, even not having seen it in 20 years. And of course, they're like all overdubbed. Even the people who are clearly speaking English are overdubbed. But I can still just hear the guy going, first the dinero. It's like, I don't know why I had already heard that dinero was slang for money, but I had never heard it said out loud, and still have never heard it said out loud convincingly. As like, it works as a rap lyric. That's about the only way that slang works. And Rumble in the Bronx may have ruined it for me. That's a very weird tangent to be going on here. Look, Jackie Chan is beating the shit out of people with skis and stolen Lamborghinis, and he ends the movie driving a stolen hovercraft, over over the bad guy on a golf course, ripping off his clothes and chapping his ass visibly.
That is my number one memory of the film, is that he runs over the guy in the hovercraft and it exposes his ass, and that's the end of the movie.
Well, the end of the movie is 3 seconds later when it ends in a triumphant freeze frame in a hovercraft cockpit. So go ahead, tell me that any movie ends better than that has ever been made.
Yeah, that's Schindler's List and Rumble in the Bronx. Those are both pretty strong endings. I don't know where. Yeah.
No, it's just, I feel like it's sort of like people's first Bond movie is always going to be special to them. Everybody's first Jackie Chan is always going to be like special to them, I think. And that was, to me, I had never heard of the guy, I don't think, before I ended up alone in the theater with like me and my two 11-year-old buddies in Wichita, Kansas in 1993 or whatever. Like,
So, I mean, it was interesting how, there had been previous attempts to kind of bring Jackie Chan to American audiences. He did a movie called The Protector in the 80s, which is a very 80s kind of cop movie. It doesn't really feel like a Jackie Chan movie at all. He was in Cannonball Run. They kind of tried to that was, I guess at the time, I'm sure that was a big break, but it was really Rumble in the Bronx was really the first one where it really clicked with America. And, then we had kind of a whole onslaught of his movies suddenly coming out. But yeah, right. I mean, the Rumble in the Bronx was that really was the one that kicked off his, at least, obviously he was huge already in a lot of the world, but in terms of America, Rumble in the Bronx was the one that definitely put him on the map.
Well, all the Jackie Chan follow-ups after that was like, that's when Hollywood was kind of like, okay, and maybe The Protector was this way too, however many years earlier, but it didn't work. But they're like, okay, there's potentially money to be made here, but we have to like get Jackie Chan into an American like Hollywood action movie milieu. Whereas Rumble in the Bronx, clearly nobody put any money into this. There's no real attempt. Like, yes, it's set in the Bronx, as you might have guessed, but I believe it's probably
Vancouver. Clearly.
Yeah, I was going to say Toronto. I'm like, that doesn't even feel right. It's not shot in New York by a damn sight, and no, like it feels more pure as a Jackie Chan vehicle. It's not trying to insert Jackie Chan into a quote unquote real movie. It's like, this is just a Jackie Chan movie.
Yeah. It really does feel like the bridge between original Jackie Chan movies and American Jackie Chan movies. I mean, it feels like I mean, my main memory of this is how well it was marketed, because I had the exact same experience as you, Al, going to this and not really knowing who Jackie Chan was and just being like sold on marketing as a little teenage idiot, and then like, this is okay, cool, and yeah, of course, like I don't know, I went on a tear renting as many as I could at that point, Super Cops and such.
Yeah,
anything we could find. Operation Condor. I mean, they kind of re-released all of them in the.
They most of them eventually would come out. Yes.
Yeah, not actually all of them. There were so many.
Yes,
but,
a lot of them. Yeah,
yeah. It eventually gets you to Rush Hour.
Right. Was. I mean, that was the first kind of, at least after Rumble in the Bronx. That was the first like truly American production that he had done. Everything else was just kind of already made and now being put out in America.
Right. Okay. That's what I mean too, where it's like, okay, you successfully integrate Jackie Chan into an American action movie, and it kind of works, but also like it's not as fun as Rumble in the Bronx.
No,
Like,
no.
Yeah, I mean, the limitations are the charm of these
Yes.
movies. I mean, well, the charm really is the stunts, but and
Yeah.
Chan's just sort of amiable persona is just very appealing. So that and the stunts is great. Anything else is kind of just like bonus, and you don't need production design or you don't need a budget. You just need him and the things he can do, and the limitations then become charming, like the Vancouver for New York stuff.
And just letting him do his thing where he's like, he kind of wants to be Charlie Chaplin.
Yes.
Like he doesn't want to be a badass. And then you watch the outtakes at the end where he breaks his ankle and then just says, fuck it, spray paint a shoe onto my cast and I'm going to keep jumping off these buildings.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, like he is like, that's the most legitimately like badass motherfucker thing I've ever heard of. But he's not interested in being a badass. He wants to be a clown. It's so endearing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it was a great like bridge movie to get him acclaim in America, and so yeah, it's a very good pick.
All right, Chris, bring us home.
Oh boy, because now, man, we're getting into real Sophie's Choice territory, because it's like on the one hand, I want to really combat the statement that Hard Target is Van Damme's only good movie. But I
At
also
what cost?
Well, it's at the cost of leaving a total action icon not represented. And oh man, I am having a really tough time.
It wasn't his best decade.
Well,
it wasn't his best decade.
Look, I've got there's no way we can do this without giving this man his props. I've got to go with 1993's Cliffhanger.
Oh, you picked the right one. Yes.
That's I think he's got other good ones too. I think he's got other
good
ones.
What's the wrong one?
Oh, there's a lot of wrong ones.
Well, no,
I know, but what were you worried that Chris was going to pick?
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man is really good.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah,
Cliffhanger's way better though.
No, Cliffhanger is the one. I mean, he started.
Even it's a close call. I think having Total Recall already kind of means you don't need to go for Demolition Man. You can go for Cliffhanger.
Yeah,
because did you have your Die Hard riff yet?
Well, Cliffhanger is in some ways a Die Hard riff. I mean, it's basically
it
Die Hard on a mountain. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So that
it needs to be represented on your list. Is what I was thinking.
Well, no, but I had Speed already. That's all. That's Die Hard.
Oh yeah. You have Die Hard on the bus.
So
slash elevator slash.
But I feel like, dude, Stallone has got to be included somewhere here. And he started the '90s out in not very good ways, Rocky V, and then Oscar, and then Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. And so, he was much like Rocky often was. I mean, he was really facing, he was on the ropes here, and it was not looking good. And Cliffhanger was like the perfect quote unquote comeback. I don't know if you can really come back after like 3 years of making crappy movies, but this was like a great way to say, okay, I'm back as an action god. Here I am. Here's Cliffhanger. We've got some incredible stunts, an opening scene that's going to blow you away. And here is Cliffhanger.
Another great villain performance from an overqualified
actor.
John
Lithgow is so much fun in this movie. I mean, he's just hamming it up. Villain. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, He's completely hamming it up. And and people always talk about the opening sequence, which is incredible. I mean, that's a great sequence. But
iconic opening sequence. Yeah.
I love that whole sequence of the robbery between the two planes. That's incredible stuff. Like, that does not get mentioned enough. That is so cool, having the two planes. Oh, it's great. Love it.
Yeah, Rennie Harlan. I think Rennie Harlan is underrated.
His great movies are underrated. I mean, he got really, he kind of got defined by Cutthroat Island, and it's a shame because I think he really is a very talented filmmaker, and unfortunately,
he makes good action movies.
He makes fantastic action movies.
It's not like he ever had a masterpiece, though. His great movies are B pluses, and that makes it hard to live down a Cutthroat Island. I think.
Cliffhanger is his best film. I would say. Long Kiss Goodnight is also really
That's
good.
one that I would have had no
he's great.
problem. I would have had no problem taking Long Kiss Goodnight. I love that
Yeah.
movie, and I'd have been fine taking that one too. But Cliffhanger, I feel like with Cliffhanger, I get to represent Rennie, and I get to represent Stallone, and I get to represent Janine Turner too. And who doesn't want to do that? So
Okay, you're gonna leapfrog Michael Rooker and go straight for Janine Turner.
Hey, Janine Turner, man,
Michael Rooker
in her day.
He's throwing 100 in this movie, man.
He's great, but I mean, I think that's just a given. I feel like
Rooker.
He's
Rooker is great as a good guy in this movie.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is so
that's
unusual.
so rare.
Yeah,
so rare. That's one of the few pleasures of it. It's a rare pleasure.
He doesn't get killed in the movie.
He has
Rooker, a constant surprise in that film.
Maybe the best line with a "season's over, asshole." That might be the best line in the whole damn movie.
This is a good representative '90s film because every terrorist has a little bit of '90s personality to him. I really like Travers, the bald guy with the mustache, has a very good arc in this. But yeah, like the soccer hooligan who Rooker kills is great.
Yeah.
Leon from Cool Runnings has
Leon.
that great scene in the cave. Wrong answer, motherfucker!
And he's got maybe one of the best '90s deaths ever in all of movies. Going, oh my god, it's so great. I'll never forget. A great Super Bowl trailer. That's the first time I saw the trailer for this was the '93 Super Bowl, and man, that was like when it first kind of started, where you'd see these trailers during the Super Bowl, and I was like transfixed by that trailer.
You know what? Well, what I wanted to say about Rooker is that I've been kicking around for months now, trying to figure out a way to do this, to like build a game around this thing. Maybe it's a draft or something, but never got to figure out how to quantify it. But the idea of actors who are like, if you're doing fantasy sports style drafting, like who's the Q rating is off the charts, like somebody who's like totally gettable for your movie, but adds so much more than their price tag would do.
Using sabermetrics to
Rooker sabermetrics are off the charts for like what he costs you for what he brings to your movie. And
James Gunn knew.
Exhibit number one. Yeah. James Gunn's got a really good sense about that.
Well, I mean, I just watched him fairly recently in a movie called White Elephant, which it's one of the last of Bruce Willis's movies, and it's like it wouldn't have usually the leads in those movies, the actual leads are crap, but in this one it's Michael Rooker, and he's great in it. He adds so much to the movie, and that's just what he does. He never takes a day off. He's whatever the movie is, he's bringing it 100%.
Yeah, he's wonderful. A real treasure. You could do a whole episode on Michael Rooker.
Oh, I'm there for it.
Put a pin in that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's. I think he's up. I mean, we did Arnold and Steve Martin, but I think Rooker is the natural choice for that. The thing that pushed Cliffhanger down my list was, I guess, it's two things. One, it's a movie that has a real hard time ever living up to its opening sequence. I hear that a lot, and I don't buy it. Come on, it's a great opening sequence, and it really grabs you into the movie. But it's not Swordfish. Like, I'll buy that with Swordfish, but I'm not buying that with Cliffhanger. Cliffhanger is not that way. It's a great opening sequence, and then the rest of the movie is great. That's Cliffhanger. See, I think you're taking that as a diss. I mean it as a compliment to that. That is like one of the, legitimately, to my mind, one of the most incredible like suspense filmmaking sequences.
Oh, it's so
it is wonderful. It is. I like Rennie Harlan, but it is like Steven Spielberg showed up to do.
Oh
exactly.
My god,
that's what I mean. That's what I mean by it. And the other thing is, there's the Stallone of it all.
If you want to see how good that sequence is, then watch Vertical Limit, where they basically try to do the same thing, and it's just laughable. Essentially, you don't take it seriously at all.
Yeah, right. That Vertical Limit is a great demonstration of how Cliffhanger is great.
Yes.
The other thing that pushed it down for me, though, is the Stallone of it all, which is what you wanted to have him represented on here. But I don't think of the 90s as Stallone's decade. I think the 90s are sort of the decade where he flamed out. Like, his peak was the 80s. The 90s, Arnold. It's the horse race between them in the 80s, and then in the 90s is Arnold pulling way, way ahead in my view.
But I think you've got a movie that's that he does that's not an action movie, but it's way more interesting than anything either one of them did with Copland. So I mean,
Yes.
and as people can
Well,
rip
yeah, no,
on.
Stallone in the 2000s. Stallone, it's a Torres and Hare situation, and he gets back to a little more drama, and maybe catches up to Arnold. But here, he's still trying to beat Arnold at that game, and I don't think he's, as good as Cliffhanger is. It's not as good as Arnold's third best movie of the 90s.
I would say that I would agree with that, actually. Well, I don't know. It's not as good as his second best.
Yeah, okay.
I guess third best would be True Lies, which we just spoke about.
Yeah,
I said that and realized I didn't know what his third best was.
Well, honestly, I would say his third best is Eraser, but I'm probably the only person that would say that. So that's just me.
I give True Lies the edge.
I
really
do
like
it, yes.
I really do like Cliffhanger, though, and I do kind of have to agree, though. Stallone is probably the weak link and the thing you could.
Oh man,
would be least affected. I think a lot of people could have done that.
But see,
I think it's because Rooker is so good that you can take the lead out of the movie and it would still work.
Yeah, but I like the fact that he's more of a regular guy in it. That he's not a super soldier, super cop, super whatever, super boxer. I like the fact
mountain climber.
He's a super but he's not.
He's still got a Rambo physique.
Yeah, but
and he's sort of like, hey, I don't know how I ended up here. It's a very odd placement for him. He does not read like rock jock, I believe is what they call him. It's like, no, he is a guy from Philly. Like we all know this.
He's very East Coast Italian in the Rocky Mountains.
He's not really mowing people down with machine guns and stuff like that, or rocket launchers. Right. He's trying to be a little more of a quote unquote regular guy. Yes, of course he's built like an Adonis and all that great stuff, whatever. But I don't know. I think he's really good in it. I think it's one of his better action performances, to be honest.
I don't know. I mean, he's Rocky. Like he has good ones. He has really good ones.
No, I know.
He's also Rambo.
Yeah.
I know Rambo became a cartoon, but man, he's got some real shit.
Jesus,
yeah. But
anyway,
yeah. We all right. So that's fine. We got our lists here. I just want to go through real quick and say, what are the ones that hurt you not to choose?
Yes, we got to do this because
the only ones that I regret not being on anybody's list are Starship Troopers, and I wanted to do Desperado, but that ended up falling by the wayside.
There's another Banderas that represents, I think, there. And given the choice, I actually do prefer Zorro to Desperado. I do.
That's what I decided.
Yeah. Troopers was almost my first draft pick, but I was kind of just like, I just don't think it's quite what I'm talking about here.
The satirical elements are so strong that
it's the Jurassic Park thing. There's stuff in there that's just too good that isn't really action. It's not really what I'm going for, even though there's some great action in them. But yeah. I mean, some of the best films of the decade, they'd be on a top 10 90s list for sure. Yeah. But I just left them on this because I don't really think of them as action movies. Exactly.
Yeah, I would say the ones that I really, really wanted to include somehow were Face Off, because I love Face Off. Great.
It's weird that no one picked that.
I think it was like once I took Hard Boiled, and it was like, and once Con Air went, I kind of felt like I didn't need to take Face Off. So that was, but I love it.
Face Off kind of got boxed out by other choices of people, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Another one that I love, but it's like I feel like nowadays you almost come off creepy if you say how much you love it, is The Professional. But
that was on my list.
It's great. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff in it where it's kind of like, there's a lot of that in the movie, but I still love it. I don't know what to tell you. I still think it's great. And then
it's an excellent movie. Really was.
I had a different Luc Besson that I was thinking of doing, which was The Fifth Element.
Oh God! Oh man!
Oh come on!
If we're talking about most annoying Chris Tucker performances, then we can go ahead with Fifth Element. But I mean, it's
he's only in the back third.
Oh, that's bad. I mean, and then and then just the last one that I wanted to take, but once Hard Target went, I at least felt good that a Van Damme movie was taken, but I was very ready to take Universal Soldier. I mean, I know that's maybe the dividing line among a lot of people where they're like looking at you like, what the hell? To me, if I'm just representing myself here, it's just two action icons just going at it for an hour and 40 minutes, and it's bliss for a person like myself.
There is a Universal Soldier cult.
Oh
Acknowledged.
God, it's great.
Mhm.
There's
I the ones I was surprised too. That, well, I guess John, you didn't say yours. If you have any left.
oh sure, yeah, The Fugitive. Didn't take The Fugitive. Feel a
Yeah,
little bad about that.
yeah.
The Rock. Feel a little bad about
Mm.
that. Again, I had Nicolas Cage already
Mhm.
represented, and I prefer Con Air. But I mean, there's no Michael Bay on this list. No one picked a Michael Bay film.
See,
Yeah.
I thought for me it was obvious that if we're going to pick a Bay, it would be Bad Boys. But
Mhm.
Oh,
I guess I was
over the
not
Rock?
right.
Ah, man.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh no,
Well, no
no.
one picked either.
That's true. No one took either.
Yeah.
I've never been a giant fan of The Rock. I just I think it's overlong, and some of the stuff in the first hour is just very superfluous. The whole chase through San Francisco, just like what we don't need to do any of this.
There's a lot of 90s to The Rock.
Yeah.
If you're picking just like what's the most 90s action movie, The Rock has to be considered. Just all the character actors and there's lines of dialogue there that you will hear over and over again in the
That's
90s. Like, you're a real piece of work, you know that? I shit you not, all that kind of like the way John C. McGinley characters talks.
Right.
The Rock is full of that. William Forsythe.
As derivative as a lot of the Rock is, I really love the kind of the swerve they do with Ed Harris, where it's like,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
good.
That's great.
It's a good movie.
it's
Overqualified
yes.
actor for the villain is another that's one of
There
the
you
things that
go.
elevates it.
There you go. Yep.
For me though, I never quite buy Nicolas Cage as the science nerd, and
I thought he was good.
I never forgive it for making Tony Todd do that stupid Rocket Man bit. It's just
I love that.
so painful. Like,
that looks like they spent like 5 days shooting that scene.
The one I'm most surprised did not ever hear mentioned is Blade.
I considered it. Blade was on my short list.
It's great.
It's very good. Yeah. I think I like 2 more, and I believe 2 falls in the aughts.
Yeah, that was
okay.
That was 02.
But I wanted some Snipes in here, but I didn't quite have there wasn't one I really wanted. So that was the thing.
I also considered Saving Private Ryan because it's got some incredible action, but it was easier to just draw the line of, you know what, we're not doing historical epics. And once you eliminate those, all my decision making gets a lot easier. So
yeah, that's the thing. I wasn't going to put Braveheart on this.
No.
Another one like that was From Dusk Till Dawn. There was just too many other genre things going on in there. It's a really good action movie, but it's also kind of a horror movie, kind of a crime thriller. It's a lot of things, and it was easier to just be like, it's too complicated.
Really the category is 90s action. Choosing a hybrid is like, well, you're not what's the point? You're not doing.
Which is kind of why Starship Troopers here. I think that's wanted pure.
Yeah, and that's not makes it not a knock on them to not choose them.
No.
It's saying you're doing more than this, so you're not the epitome of this thing. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, and another one that, even though it was mentioned briefly, but it's a great one, even though the star of it is now basically we've known for a long time what a creep he was, is Under Siege. I mean, that is a great, to me, 90s action film. That's
high watermark for Seagal, right? Got to be.
Absolutely the high watermark. But
yes,
even before knowing that Seagal is a legitimate fucking monster of a person, like I thought he was shit as an action star.
It's the movie around him that's doing the heavy lifting.
Yeah, everybody else is doing the stuff.
Well, look, I will say, he look. It's weird because, like, I don't want to defend the guy so much because he's a creep. But the early, I mean, some people, I know it's easy to say now that what a monster, what a jerk, what an asshole. His initial run,
I'm saying, like, what a goofball. He looks goofy on screen doing fights, which is his whole thing.
Hey, but the
when he runs, it's fucking hysterical.
The knife fight between him and Tommy Lee Jones Under Siege is awesome. It's a great.
Is actually good.
It's so good. Yeah.
You know what the other thing is? I guess if you're doing action movies of any decade, and you sort of, I think, have to address somehow, like, okay, what about Bond? And the 90s are not a great era for Bond, but I considered GoldenEye on there.
I've got it there too. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. It's certainly the best Brosnan. It's Martin Campbell again. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And again, overqualified villain. Bond movies obviously live and die by their villains to a huge degree, and Sean Bean is a fantastic one. But
well, and Famke Janssen too. She's outstanding in it. I love her. Just great. So I think that's. I feel like even within Bond movies, I feel like that one doesn't get the recognition it deserves, because I think it's just an outstanding action movie, really.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a legit good action movie, and
it's one of the most lauded films of the franchise. It saved the franchise from its biggest drop off ever. It was
well, I think it was lauded, and it's kind of fallen off lately. That people,
the Brosnan run has not not been treated well by time, but
the rest of it drug it. I think the rest of the Brosnan run has drug GoldenEye with it.
I think GoldenEye's the one everyone's like, see that one he nailed. I think that's
the
one.
It's man, that whole tank chase sequence, that is one of the better
that's wonderful
action scenes.
So my dark horse that I by the end I was like, there's no way I'm playing this, but the one I had in my back pocket and I was really kind of excited about maybe talking about No Escape. Ray Liotta prison colony film. Yeah,
more Martin Campbell. I mean,
or Stuart Wilson.
Yeah. It's a great movie.
It's a good time. Yeah.
Yep.
If we were going to 10, you could include that stuff.
I would have, yes.
Sure.
And that's where I might have included Braveheart as an action film if we were going to 10, because over time that has slipped from a prestige historical epic into just a exploitation film in my mind. I'd probably go with The Patriot. I think The Patriot's action is probably a little better executed. We've been having a lot of fun with that recently. After Avatar Way of Water brought it to mind, but man, that tomahawk rampage is one of my favorite action scenes in the 90s.
Is that 90s? Is
that was
it
was
2000. It might be 2000.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's why it wouldn't work.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's a good one.
Yeah, I do like it.
Best movie, might be.
Whoa,
a good tomahawk rampage is timeless, though. I feel.
Oh, for sure, always.
As with Last of the Mohicans, not here.
Indeed.
Too much other stuff going on, right?
Yeah. Too classy to be on this shelf. All right, so let's recap our lists. Anybody who can tell us who won. So my list goes Terminator 2, Point Break, The Mask of Zorro, Men in Black, and Rumble in the Bronx.
It's a good 90s day right there. Yeah,
absolutely.
I have The Matrix, Con Air, Ronin, Die Hard with a Vengeance, and Hard Target.
Yeah, that's also quite 90. I mean, again, that you start off with the 2000s, but man,
it's
kind of going backwards, actually. I think.
I chalk in with Speed, Hard Boiled, Total Recall, The Last Boy Scout, and Cliffhanger.
You definitely got the meanest list of us.
Oh, yeah.
Those last three especially.
Yes.
I
think whoever
these are all fun.
Whoever had Last Boy Scout was going to be the meanest list. I think that just automatically
by its own, but bookended by Total Recall and Cliffhanger. That's the mean one.
Yes.
Whereas I have Jackie Chan and Men in Black. I think I've got the cuddly one.
You have a little nicer, a little more peace and love and harmony in those movies.
Yeah, even the Terminator's a good guy on my list.
Yes, he doesn't kill anybody.
I think even with Con Air and Hard Target, I might have the Prestige one.
I think you do.
I do, yeah. Well, I think Ronin definitely puts it.
The joint.
Ronin and the Matrix class up the joint. Yeah.
Ronin is like you got to watch with a monocle. It's a very classy action. It's a great movie, but that's how you should watch it. It's a very, very classy action.
It's an action movie for Stellan Skarsgård fans.
Yes.
Oh, big time. How about that scene when De Niro and Michael Lonsdale sit and talk about a giant model of the 47 Ronin? Sort of looks like a Warhammer board for like 10 minutes.
Yes. Oh,
God, I love that movie.
That's great stuff.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I think this has the potential, once we cut it up, to be the longest episode we've done, which was always a possibility here. So so we should finish this off here. Thank you very much for joining us, Chris. This was fun. We will I don't know, maybe we'll do this again with some other thing at some point.
I would love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and please give us a rating on the podcast thing of your choice. And if, for love of God, write us a review. It would be wonderful. Just put in your favorite 90s action movie.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What did we leave off?
That leaps us up the visibility.
Yeah,
sure.
Did we really blow it with The Fugitive? Is that what we did? No Harrison Ford on anybody's list, by the way.
No.
Yeah, not a Jack Ryan to be seen. Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Happy 2023. And we'll be back later with Carpenter and other things. All right, that's it.
Yep, looking forward to it.